Now, moving on to another problematic bloke, Prince Harry has found yet another public platform to slate his family on. This time, it won't be just them he's upsetting. Despite the Duke's $100 million contract with Netflix, Prince Harry's Invictus Games documentary has started screening on the US streaming giant's rival, Hulu. Let's bring in the host of the To Die For daily podcast, Kinsey Schofield. She's back. Kinsey, very good evening to you.
I have bad news for you, Mike.
No.
I don't think Prince Harry has anything to do with this.
Really?
I think there is somebody that does PR for Invictus or somebody that does PR for Archwell in general who could potentially right now be on the chopping block after this mistake was made. This is not a Prince Harry endorsed documentary. This is an ABC News documentary. They've taken interviews with talking heads. They've taken multiple old interviews and Harry's most recent interview in Canada, and they've put together a 20-minute documentary. But you are absolutely right. This reminds me of Oprah Winfrey. When Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah Winfrey, they made Netflix and Spotify livid because that's the kind of content that Netflix and Spotify wanted exclusively when they offered them millions of dollars to come over on their team. This is a reflection of that, where Netflix is probably sitting back going, well, we would have much rather had the content that you did voluntarily give ABC at some point.
Absolutely right. And I mean, you and I have seen these kinds of contracts. You don't normally get to wiggle around and do whatever you like. I mean, how did they get away with it?
I mean, I think that what Prince Harry probably assumed he was doing was a one-off Good Morning America interview. And what Good Morning America did was scramble back to New York, take that interview, throw in a bunch of old Prince Harry interviews, and then throw in conversations with royal experts like Robert Jobson. And that's another I love Jobbo, but one of the reasons why I also firmly don't believe Prince Harry is associated with it is because Robert has been critical of Harry and Meghan in the past. And Harry and Meghan do not work with people that are openly critical of them. They do not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you were immediately on the list, which cannot be named with a bad word, because I mean, I imagine that once you've slighted any one of the two of them, you are never ever to darken their door again. I mean, that's why they have such a high turnover of staff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that is another reason why I believe that Prince Harry's hands are likely clean here. However, he needs better advisors, Mike. He needs somebody that says, well, we need to make sure when we talk to Good Morning America that they're only going to play this once. They can't upload this to digital, or they can't turn this into a 20-minute documentary. Because you're right, the documentary just regurgitated a bunch of harsh feelings towards the British royal family and distracted from the Invictus Games, and does nothing when it comes to this healing that we all keep hoping for and talking about, this inevitable reconciliation. I mean, it just throws them all the way back to the beginning with this kind of content.
Right, exactly right. And when they popped up to Canada, was it last week when they were doing their promo for the Invictus Games, they didn't seem to do much with the Invictus Games. They just did an awful lot of sort of hanging about on ski slopes and messing around and having pictures taken and having lots of video shot, but there wasn't much to do with the Invictus Games, it seems to me.
Well, it's all about schmoozing and networking. I mean, the real stars of Invictus Games should absolutely be the vets. However, all cameras do seem to be on Harry and Meghan when they're around. But the ultimate objective was PR, networking, and building a buzz for next year's Invictus Games. I do think they're struggling financially. You've seen some turnover at the top of Invictus Games, and it's very likely that they've got to put themselves out there a little bit more to try to generate more interest and financial backing for the Invictus Games.
Absolutely right. And meanwhile, there's this kind of toing and froing going on with Harry's visa, isn't there? Donald Trump's latest intervention saying that basically he would throw him out of the country if he became president because he thinks he's been so disloyal to the royal family, which is quite good for a laugh, it seems to me. But there's this very odd thing going on where the people in the case, the government, in fact, are saying, well, we don't necessarily believe a word of what he wrote in his book because he probably just made it up to sell more copies.
I know. So obviously they've not done much research, or they would have listened to any of the sit-down interviews Prince Harry did leading up to not all Mike, it's not only the sit-down interviews. Prince Harry discusses bits and pieces of it in the Netflix special. I think he talks about it in the Apple Plus documentary, The Me You Can't See. Yeah, we know he talked about it with this Dr. Gabe something or another, and this pay to play interview he did to promote the release of Spare. Harry openly discusses drug use. Like, it's not just within the pages of Spare. Harry openly discusses it. There is documentation in newspapers, historical documentation of newspapers on your side of the pond about his drug use. So you know, what a silly excuse from the Biden administration to try to justify this.
I mean, do you think it's because they don't want to be seen as being the bad guys in some way? Because he's quite graphic about his drug use as well, which if you were making it up, I don't think you would do.
Do I think that they're not? I think that they're trying to cover their butts, because I do think that there was some special, I do think that Prince Harry has been given special privileges to be in this country. And I think that it's the Biden administration trying to cover their own butts, if I'm being honest with you. And it sounds like a pretty desperate attempt, saying like, oh, he exaggerated that. But yeah, I mean, I always felt like there was perhaps a little special privilege, because how does a prince all of a sudden end up living in the United States of America days before a pandemic that shuts down the entire world? You know, something had to have happened to make that action so quick that all of a sudden he's living here.
Right. I mean, I wasn't allowed into America for 2 years. I didn't see my own mother for 2 years, who happens to live in America, as a result of not anything to do with vaccinations, but just people from Britain who were not American citizens were not allowed in.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously there were likely some special preferences, but the Biden administration and the Biden family, they do really like Prince Harry, and they have been critical. Joe Biden talks about his mother. He repeats his mother being critical about the royal family in his book. He's nice about the royal family today, now that he's the president. I mean, on a good day, if he remembers who he is. But he does seem to have a preference towards Prince Harry. And, you know, they endorsed him during that ABC Time special that Harry and Meghan, People of the Year. Harry and Meghan practically set on national television in the States and endorsed Joe Biden.
I know. It's incredible stuff. Well, the one good reason maybe for President Trump not to be elected again second time is that he'll send Harry back, and we don't really want him. But Kinsey, thank you very much indeed. Kinsey Schofield there, absolutely brilliant, coming in right here from Hollywood.